Hi, my name is Jason Zilberbrand. I'm the president of VREF, and I'm a full-time aircraft appraiser, software developer, and entrepreneur. Hi, my name is Jason Zilberbrand. I'm the president of VREF. I'm a full-time aircraft appraiser, software developer, and entrepreneur. Catch me on the Jesse T Show.
Beautiful, brother. All right. I'm about to kick us off for the conversation and bring us back into it. Do you need anything from me before we get started?
No, I'm good.
All right. And then if you want to drink anything, feel free
Cool.
during the conversation, but let's have at it. Just organic, two dudes having a chat, man. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Jason Zilberbrand, welcome to the Jesse T Show, brother.
Thanks, Jesse. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure, man. We had a great conversation a little while ago, and I wanted to expand on that conversation from the things that you've, experienced, the things that you do today. So just walk us through kind of high level. Who are you and what brought you to today?
Who am I? So I am, today I'm a full-time aircraft appraiser. It took many years to get there, but I'm a entrepreneur and a software developer. And I own and manage VREF, which is for lack of a better term, Kelly's Blue Book. So we are the equivalent to Kelly's, except all we do is aircraft. Track about 8,000 different models. We have about 700,000 subscribers, and we do about 18,000 valuations a month.
Wow. Wow. So there's a lot going on there. So how did
A lot
you
going on.
how did you get to that point? Where did you start in your entrepreneurial career and some of the experiences that brought you to today?
Yeah. So I was pretty fortunate growing up in an entrepreneurial family. My dad was a serial entrepreneur growing up. He went so from the early days, it was the parking business. So he owned and operated like 35 parking lots in downtown Chicago. Sold it before any of it became of value, which was probably his biggest mistake in life. But you learn from it and you move on. But yeah, needless to say, I probably wouldn't be talking to you today if he would have kept half of what he had. But so be it. So in the early 80s, he sold off the parking business out of boredom, and then he started a salad dressing company of all things. And his claim to fame is he actually was the first cold display unit inside a grocery store. So back in the early days, if you're probably too young, maybe you remember, but there was only unrefrigerated salad
I
dressings.
don't remember that. No, I wasn't looking.
It's crazy to even think that it's a thing,
Wow.
but I mean, it's a pretty big deal. I mean, if you know anything about grocery store economics, the last thing they want to do is disrupt what they got going, and they
Yeah.
don't like to carve out floor space. So my dad, being very tenacious, convinced them to not only carve out shelf space, but now it's the predominant portion of the salad dressing business at least in the United States. But yeah, he
Wow.
started a company called Alexander's. Uh, I was in like middle school. He kept it for 2.5 years, sold it to Beatrice Foods, and moved on. And that was kind of like the theme. He would start something, have no correlation to another industry that he was in, learn it from the ground up. And by the time he learned it, he was bored to death and sold it off. And actually, for the most part, he's pretty successful doing that. And then in high school, he was semi-retired. I think he was really looking for the next project, and somebody had handed him, basically a 3-ring binder with a business model that was called engine maintenance programs. And really what it was a life insurance program for business jets.
Wow.
And so, yeah, if you go back early enough, business jets had very terrible dispatch reliability. They were super expensive. There weren't a lot of them. It was a very complicated sales process because people were flying them and demonstrating them as a pilot to somebody who's potentially going to buy it, and they had a propensity to blow up. The engines, they were called Garrett grenades back in the early day, and literally
Wow.
they'd take it on a demo flight. The principal would be coming out to see a potential new aircraft, and they'd start it up, and the engines would have catastrophic events right there in front of them.
Wow. Not a good selling point.
No, really bad. It went on for quite some time. And what wound up happening is the manufacturer said, we need to subsidize, the engines because they're so expensive. For a lot of people don't understand, but the car world and the aviation world have very little in common in terms of valuing assets and how everything works. So in a business jet, a little bit more than half the value of that aircraft, the power plants or the engines.
Wow.
Yeah, they're so expensive and they're a fortune to maintain. And most of them are on a calendar or hourly maintenance schedule. right? So every couple thousand hours, you've got to go in and be prepared to write a check for $700,000 because that's what it costs to overhaul an engine.
Wow.
So my dad's business was, hey, you pay me an hourly rate for every hour you fly. And when your engine blows up, I'll pay 100% of the expenses. Sounded pretty good. And the problem was, is nobody was like, everyone basically said, how do we know we're going to be here when the engine blows up? Right. A
Right.
pretty common situation. So he was just a grinder. And every day, he'd enroll an airplane. And after a year or two, and now I'm at the end of my high school career. So I'm getting ready to graduate. The business started to take off. Couple of neat things happened. One, he had no unscheduled events for any of the aircraft he had enrolled. And two, it was a very interesting group of clients. They were all very high net worth or very well known, a lot of notables, and they all had the same thing in common: very wealthy, and they paid their bills. And he was just, growing it so fast that they really just ran out of manpower to deal with the company. So I got dragged in my second year of college. I got a phone call: hey, we're coming to pick you up. And the minivan showed up and lugged all my stuff in, and I had hair down to my shoulders. And Fort Collins, Colorado, 1991 is my freshman year, right? I mean, you can imagine what a complete antithesis it was from corporate, environment. But I was, wanting to promote rock concerts and do that whole thing. And he's like, nope, you're going to come work for the family business. And begrudgingly, I
Wow.
said yes. Yeah, I wasn't
Plucked you out
really.
of college. Didn't even give you an option.
It really wasn't an option. I remember him basically saying, you're either going to do this, you got to figure out how to pay for it because I need the help and I don't trust a lot of people. And you're in the inner circle and you're old enough and it's time to go to work.
How did you feel in that moment? Did you feel like, was there some resentment, or were you all in, or were you just didn't even know where the road was going to lead?
Oh no, I was pissed. Yeah, I was not happy about it. I think it was an interesting situation. A lot of my friends didn't have that opportunity, and I was very in tune with that. And I think, growing up in a, private school where everybody's parents make a lot of money. And, I went to school with the same 50 kids for 14 years.
Wow.
One of two very small private schools in downtown Chicago. To say it was being, completely isolated from the real world, I think is, not even close. I mean, honestly, you really get delusional really quick, right? I mean, when the poorest kid in your class's dad is a cardiovascular surgeon, we've got issues.
Yeah.
And that
Not in
was
touch with the 99% of the world, essentially.
no,
Yeah.
no. And I mean, I think all the kids I grew up with, I don't know. I mean, I don't really stay in touch with a lot of them, but the ones that I do, I think we all kind of have that in common. It's like, wow, we were so isolated from
Yeah.
everything, but I chose to go to a state school. I wanted to see what the real world was like. I really wanted to experience not having things force fed. And being a Jewish kid from downtown Chicago, I couldn't pick the most obscene place to go, right? I picked, you know, it was a cowboy school, there it was equestrian, it was agriculture. We had a decent basketball team, but for the most part, Colorado State in those early days was not known, for what it's known today. Um, very much a 70s campus. The kids were predominantly from Fort Collins, going to school in Fort Collins. And here comes this big, city kid. And I couldn't have been more black to their white. I mean, it was just unbelievable. I had nothing in common with any of these kids. I had to listen to a lot of anti-Semitic, rhetoric because that's how they spoke, and I remember, early in the first couple of weeks, I was like, I either have to like, assimilate and fit in, or I got to pack my shit and get the hell out of here because it's not
Wow.
going to change, and
Wow.
that's when I realized I could get along with people from other, classes and other cultures. And, all these kids were so different. Not one of them was Jewish. Not one of them came from a well-off, home. And definitely politically and, and religious opinions back in those days. I think, again, it was pretty extreme. But what was really cool is that they wanted to learn about another way of life too.